guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl, and today I'm coming at you with a book recommendations video. So this video is going to be some book recommendations for Randomathon, which is going to be my first readathon of the year. Randomathon is one that changes themes every time we do it, and this year's theme is books about books, writers, bookstores, libraries, or authors. I'll link the announcement video up in the cards as well as in the description down below. This readathon starts on Monday, January 27th and runs through February 9th. So we are just under 2 weeks away. I'm all set with one of my new book sweatshirts, which of course you can't see, but it needed its little moment. So this video is going to be recommendations for books that are about books, authors, and libraries. So I have a lot of different kinds of recommendations for you, so don't expect this video just to be contemporary, cozy reads. There's going to be some mysteries, a little bit of spooky reads. We've got middle grade YA, all kinds of different things going on. I hope this helps build your TBR. I try not to give any recommendations for books that I haven't read, just because I don't really know the content and I save those for when I do book haul videos or TBR videos. I do have a books about books book haul video that will give you more recommendations of things that I haven't read that I have hauled. All of these recommendations are going to be things that I have actually read, and I have a TBR video that will come out in just a couple days as well. There are 5 reading challenges for Randomathon, so I'm going to share some books for each reading challenge. The first reading challenge is Bookshelf on the Cover. I'm just going to kind of point those out as I'm going through the other reading challenges. The next reading challenge is Book in the Title, so we're going to start there. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is Book Jumper. This is like the most perfect book ever. First of all, look at this beautiful cover. We have a book, we have book characters. This is a YA standalone. We're following Amy, and she doesn't know what to expect when her and her mother pick up and go to stay with her grandmother, leaving Germany for Scotland, headed to Lennox House in the island of Stormsay. Amy's grandmother insists that she must read while she stays at Lennox House, but not in the usual way. Amy learns that she is a book jumper, able to open a book and jump inside its pages and interact with the characters inside. Amy's power is fascinating but also dangerous when she learns that someone is stealing from the books that she jumps inside of and may be after her life. Such a great standalone. It's so fun. I adore books where characters can go into books or come out of books, so this is such a good one for that. Next, we have The Book of Living Secrets by Madeline Rue. This is another one where characters jump inside of a story. This again is another YA standalone, more on the fantasy gothic side, which I really enjoy. I love Madeline LaRue's writing style. So we're following Adele and Connie, and they have been friends forever, united by their love of a gothic classic book called Moira. Unable to reach the author of Moira, the girls have to settle for just reading this wonderful book, dreaming how their lives would be so much better if they were more like the world in this romantic fantasy. When the girls are tempted by a mysterious purveyor that offers them the attempt to jump inside of the book and live in the world, they hardly think that it's going to work. Such a good one. It has some really cool gothic elements, and it's just such a fun, adventurous story. Next up is Night Books by J.A. White. This is part of a middle grade duology, which I just now found out, but this works perfectly as a standalone as well. Everything like wraps up really well. This is a spooky middle grade. Like, it is a lot creepier and darker than I expected it to be. It was fabulous. The movie was also one of the scariest movies that I have personally watched. Like, I try to stay away from like true scary movies. I thought it was going to be slightly more lighthearted, like The House with the Clock in its Walls, or like other middle grade books that have come out into movies, but it was actually fairly scary. My husband was like, "Why are we watching this? It's so scary." So we're following a boy who has been imprisoned by a witch that must tell her a new scary story every night to keep her from killing him. Alex's scary stories are the only thing that are keeping the witch Natcha happy. Soon he'll run out of pages to read from and will be trapped forever. He has loved scary stories his whole life, but now that he is actually trapped in one, he longs for a different kind of ending. This one works for book in the title, but it will also work for author is a character because the scary stories that he reads are from his own writing. And there's a bookshelf on the cover, so you can knock out 3 challenges at once. Alright, next we have The Book Thief by Marcus Suzak. This is a well-beloved book in the bookish community. I personally didn't fully love it just because I struggle with books that are set during World War II, but it is so beloved that it had to belong on this list. This is a standalone YA historical fiction. We're in 1939 Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath and death has never been busier. By her brother's graveside, Liesel's life is changed when she picks up a single object, partially hidden hidden in the snow, The Grave Digger's Handbook. It is left behind there by accident. It's her first act of book thievery. So begins her love affair of books as her accordion-playing father helps her learn how to read. Soon she is stealing books from the Nazi book burning, the mayor's wife's library, and wherever there are books found. These are dangerous times, and Liesel's family are hiding and fostering a Jew in their basement. Liesel's world is both opened up and closed down. This is a little bit of a heavier story. I wouldn't say it's as heavy as I expected it to be. I had a lot of anxiety reading it just because of the time period that it was set in, and I had certain expectations of things that were going to happen that I was worried about. It's not quite as heavy as it seems, but it's not a light read at all. We are also, I believe, following Death's perspective, and I believe that they have like a connection. It is very beautifully written and just like a really solid, well-beloved book. All right, next I have one of two holiday reads that I want to share with you in case you need a little bit more festive spirit in your life this winter season. All right, so we have Dash and Lily's Book of Dare. This is one I constantly recommend at Christmas time. It is such a good holiday YA rom-com. It's the first in a series, but I in particularly love this first one. I adore the TV show. It's so magical and just like really charming. So in this one we're following Dash and Lily. Lily has left a book in the famous bookshop in New York, and once it is opened there's a dare and an invite to play. Dash, who is a teenage boy, decides that he wants to play, and they go back and forth writing things in this particular journal and dare each other to do different things. Lily is very festive, loves Christmas and winter, and very positive, and Dash is more negative, a little bit of a Scrooge, and they kind of force each other to do things that are a little bit out of their comfort zone. It's stinking adorable. So this one has book in the title, but also works for set in a bookstore, and it just is the cutest. All right, next up is set in a library or a bookstore. All right, for this one we have The Archived by Victoria Schwab. It's part of a YA duology. It is an extremely unique and different kind of book. Imagine a place where the dead rest on shelves like books. Everybody has a different story to tell, a life scene in pictures that only librarians can read. The dead are called histories, and the vast realm in which they rest is the archive. So Da first brought Mackenzie Bishop here 4 years ago when she was 12 years old, frightened but determined to prove herself. Now Da is dead, and Mac has grown into what he once was, a ruthless keeper tasked with stopping violent history from waking up and getting out. Because of her job, she lies to the people she loves, and she knows fear for what it is, a useful tool for staying alive. This world is like so unique. There's a secret library where the dead are, and we can read their histories, and they can come alive temporarily, and there are keepers trying to keep everything in order. So not technically books. It is set in a library, and they are like books in a way. If you want something totally different and definitely darker, a little bit heavier, this is such a good one. Next we have Dead and Gondola by Anne Claire. This one's set in a mysterious bookshop that is also a book chalet near a ski resort. We're following the Christie sisters and their cat Agatha. They have learned about solving mysteries from their favorite novelist when a murder happens and they must solve one for real. So this one I didn't love as much as I wanted to. I'm kind of debating on rereading it. It's the start of like a cozy YA mystery series. I did love the bookshop elements. I loved the cat. I loved the winter elements were really good. Lots of plays on Agatha Christie. I can't exactly remember what didn't fully work for me. Like it was like a 3-star. It wasn't a bad read at all. But if you like cozy mysteries, this is one you should probably check out. Next up is Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. This is an adult standalone by Robin Sloan. I love Robin Sloan so much, and this is like such a perfect one. So we're following Clay, who was originally a web drone but now works the night shift at the mysterious Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. After just a few days working on the job, Clay realizes just how mysterious his job is. A few customers come in without buying anything. Instead, they check out obscure volumes from strange corners of the store. All runs according to some elaborate, long-standing arrangement with Mr. Penumbra. The store must be a front for something larger. So we have a very, very quirky, fun, and charming book. It's such a weird book, but it is so good. I love Robin Sloan's writing. It is very magical surrealism, mysterious, and heartwarming at the same time. This is also a very short one, I believe, so it's a really good one. Technically, this also has book in the title, so you can count it for 2 prompts if you want. So we have The Holiday Switch from Tiff Marcello. This is a YA rom-com Christmas holiday standalone, but I had to include it on here because it is so perfect for the book prompt. So we're following Leela, and she is working on her holiday break at her aunt's cozy inn, trying to earn some extra cash over winter break. She is an anonymous book blogger, and her perfect holiday comes to a crash when she has to start working with Teddy, who is the opposite of everything that she is. I'm including this one because she is a book blogger. It doesn't necessarily hit a particular prompt, but you can count it for the recommendation prompt if you want to check it out. The last challenge I'm going to give you recommendations for is author is a character. We do have one other challenge that is a recommended book. Since so many things will work for that, we're not going to talk about that here. So we have A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This one, if you get the special edition that's currently out at Target, I think Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it's like maybe $1 more than the regular edition, has bookshelves on the spine, so you can count it for bookshelf on the cover if you want as well. This is a really unique gothic read. I kind of want to reread it because I had a little bit of mixed feelings the first time I read it, but the writing is beautiful and it works really good for this readathon. I'm going to read you the synopsis directly because it's a little bit trickier. Effie Sayre has always believed in fairy tales. Even though crumbling under the pressure of her first term at college, she can't always seem to tell the difference between fact and fiction. Her only solace has been Agarad, an epic from Lalarian national hero and author Emirius Mirrodin. Taken by chance and maybe fate to the late author's estate, she is intent on finding the purpose to her own story, but instead stumbles upon Preston Hellery, a scholar from the Literature College. Preston has come to Harith Manor determined to prove Effie's favorite author is a fraud, and her only hope of proving him wrong is to conspire with him. But her wrath is perched at the very edge of a wrathful ocean holding dark secrets, the likes of which both Effie and Preston thought only existed in the pages of Mirrodin's stories. The author is technically not in this book because the author, I believe, has died in this world, but she is mentioned and talked about so much that I will let you count it for this category. Kind of the same thing for this one. So we have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I honestly had probably the same feelings for these two books. Like, they're sitting at like a 3.5 star, but they're like a lot of people's favorites and I keep meaning to reread them. This one is interesting because the first half of the book is very different from the second half of the book. This is now, I believe, YA duology, but you can read this one as a standalone. This is a little bit of an older YA that is a beloved favorite. 17-year-old Alice and her mother have spent most of Alice's life on the road, always a step ahead of the uncanny bad luck biting at their heels. But when Alice's grandmother, the reclusive author of a book of pitch dark fairy tales, dies alone in her estate, the Hazelwood, Alice learns how bad her luck can get. Her mother is stolen away by a figure who claims to come from the cruel supernatural world where her grandmother's stories are set. Alice's only lead is the message her mother has left behind: stay away from the Hazelwood. In this world, her grandmother is this super famous author of this really fantastical, magical fantasy world. It has like a cult following and people are always like digging in with facts and theories, and so mysterious things start happening to Alice and her mother basically. The first half of this book very much reads kind of like a contemporary read, and then the second half is a little bit more on the fantasy side. I liked the second half better, to no one's surprise. Our main character is very unlikable, I feel like, especially in the beginning. Again, the author is not present in the book, but she is talked about and mentioned enough that she feels like a presence. Really good one for that. Then we have The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Allie Carter. This actually made my top 10 for 2024. So this is another holiday read. This one is less holiday-ish than Dash and Lily, but this is a holiday adult mystery romance, and it is a very good blend of those things. We're following Maggie Chase and Ethan Wyatt. They are both authors. She is the queen of cozy mystery and he is a big time thriller guy and she hates his guts. They are both invited mysteriously to someone's house for the holidays. Both their agents encourage them to go. When they get there, they realize they are there with other authors and are spending Christmas in kind of a mysterious way. I don't want to give away too much because it's in the synopsis, but there was a twist that I didn't expect coming. I should have expected it. I enjoyed that when I found out. I was like very excited. They are both authors. There's a mystery that they have to solve together. There is romance. There is Christmassy vibes, and it's just really fun. I feel like the pacing was really good and I just had such a good time with it. I highly recommend the audio. I believe there are 2 narrators and it's just such a well done audiobook. It's so captivating and so fun. So this would be a great one for the readathon. All right, next up is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Technically this is a new adult standalone. It reads more YA. It does not have any like spicy scenes or anything in it, but the characters are in college. I love Fangirl so much, and you guys, I am so picky with my contemporary books, and this is one of my all-time favorites. I love Rainbow Rowell. So we're following Kath, and she is a twin. She is going to college away from her twin for the first time in her life, and she is the opposite of her twin sister. She is very kind of anxious and reclusive and shy, and her twin sister is life of the party and out there, and they kind of lean on each other, but they're going to try and make their own way. She has an anonymous fan fiction account where she writes fan fiction about Simon Snow, which is basically like Harry Potter, and she writes all of these amazing fan fiction books that become extremely viral and popular. She is trying to simultaneously write the ending of this series on her own before the actual book comes out so that she can kind of have her own conclusion. You're following that because every like few chapters you are getting a chapter in her Simon Snow fan fiction, which I absolutely loved so much. This is like the special edition that has some of the art from the book and the fan fiction here. I love this one so much that I have reread it multiple times, and I'm currently reading the manga that came out somewhat recently. There are 4 mangas that complete this book. It was so fun seeing the book brought to life, and it does again both the Simon Snow portions and Kath. There's a romance in here with Levi, who is very charming and sweet, and it was really fun. We've got a little bit of harder hitting topics because the twins' mother left them when they were little. So there's some healing and things that need to happen with that. It's just a really well balanced book. There's got the fantasy elements with the Simon Snow. We've got Kath kind of coming into her own. We've got the stuff with the mother, and then there's a sweet romance as well. It's just really great. So this one will work, and also the mangas will work great for the readathon because Kath is a writer, and there's a lot to do with writing and books and things like that in here. Okay, then lastly, I have a few more recommendations that don't fit a particular reading challenge prompt. However, just like with all my readathons, you do not have to do any of the reading challenges if you don't want to, as long as you read a book about a book, a bookshop, a library, or an author, you are good to go. So these books will fit that category, and you can also count them for the recommended category if you want to, because I'm recommending them to you right now. We have The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I finally finished this book last year, and I'm so glad I did. It was so great. Part of an adult fantasy witchy romance series that is amazing. It's just incredible and just as good as everybody says. Deep in the heart of Oxford's Bodleian Library, scholar Diana Bishop requests a manuscript called Ashmole 782 in the course of her research. Coming from an old and distinguished lineage of witches, Diana senses that the ancient book might be bound up with magic. She herself wants nothing to do with sorcery, and after making a few notes on its curious images, she banishes it quickly back to the stack. But what she doesn't know is that the old alchemic text has been lost for centuries, and its sudden appearance has set a fantastical underworld stirring. Soon, a distracting horde of demons, witches, and vampires descend upon the Baudelain's reading room. One of these creatures is Matthew Claremont, an enigmatic eminent geneticist, a practitioner of yoga, and a wine connoisseur, but also a vampire with a keen interest in Ashmole 782. So this one has a lot to do with library. I wouldn't say it's set in the library like the whole time, which is why I didn't put it in that category, but you can technically use it for that one if you want. But this one has a lot to do with this particular book that they are looking for and the magic in it. There's romance, there's intrigue, there's magic, there's charming characters. It's also like cozy and fantastical at the same time. It is a very long one, so just kind of keep that in mind. I am continuing the series sometime this year. I really enjoyed it, so it will work for the readathon. Next up is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. I love this one. I recommend it all the time. It is really good for the winter season as well. It is also witchy vibes. The Walker women of Fir Haven have always lived in the woods. Some say the first Walker women came straight from the forest, her bones built of roots and thorns as if she sprouted up from the ground. This is where their legacy began, a strange and mythical legacy rooted in folklore. Be careful of the dark wood, especially the woods surrounding the town of Fir Haven. Some say these woods are magical or cursed. Rumored to be a witch, only Nora Walker knows the truth. She and the Walker women before her have always shared a special connection with the woods, and it's this special connection that leads Nora to Oliver Huntsman, the same boy who disappeared from the camp for wayward boys weeks ago, and in the middle of the worst snowstorm in years. He should be dead, but here he is alive and left in the woods with no memory of the time that he went missing. But Nora can feel an unnecessary shift in the woods at Oliver's presence, and it's not too long after that that Nora realizes she has no choice but to unearth the truth behind how the boy she has come to care for so deeply survived his time in the forest and what led him there in the first place. I think she lives kind of by herself in this cabin in the woods. There is a like camp nearby where kind of like a Boy Scout camp basically, and something tragic happened and Oliver went missing, and so now she has found him like I think months later, maybe even years later. The reason I have this one included in here is because in between every chapter, there is a page from the Walker Women's spell book, and it has like spell book of moonlight and forest medicine. It will have like a recipe or notes or something in it, and it is very cool. So we have this like little spell book that we're following. Not a major plot point, but if you want something that's not super book heavy, this is such a good one. It's one of my all-time favorites. The Forest Scrim by Catherine Purdy, another great one for the winter season. This is going to be part of a YA duology. The second book comes out very soon. I absolutely cannot wait for it. This one is very heavy on the fairy tales and I love it. Once upon a time, villagers would whisper their desires to the Book of Fortune, and its pages would reveal how to obtain them. All was well until someone used the book for evil. Afterward, the branches of the Forest Scrim snatched the book away and the village withered. The villagers tried to make amends with the forest, but every time someone crossed its borders, they never returned. So we are following Clara, and she is embarking on a journey to bring this book back and kind of help her village. And along the way, she kind of stumbles into all these different types of fairy tale characters, and she kind of has to puzzle out this mystery. She's also followed by a good friend of hers, so there's a little romance in here. I really loved this one. It was so fairy tale oriented, but also its own unique thing. I really enjoyed the way that it ended, and I'm very excited for the next one. Next, we have The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This is an adult cozy fantasy. I believe it's going to be part of a series now, but the second book I think follows a different character, so it will work perfectly as a standalone. Keela has always had trouble dealing with people, and thankfully as a librarian at the Great Library of the Cillium, she and her assistant Kaz, a magically sentient spider plant, have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbook, preserving their magic for the city's elite. When a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz flee with all the spellbooks they can carry and head to a remote island Keela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Keela discovers, much to her dismay, a nosy and very handsome neighbor who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and to help fix up her new home. This one has a really good blend of magic and fantasy and romance. Not a spicy one, but a cute, cozy romance. It is so good if you like things like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is such a good one. You can technically count this one for set in a library, although it's a very small portion of the beginning of the book. She talks about books. She's in charge of taking care of books and plants, and it is just really great. I loved this one so much. Really fun. I will say that the audiobook is much quirkier and a little bit on the silly side. So is the book, but I feel like audio enhanced that, which may or may not work for some people, but I just really enjoyed this one. And because The Lake House by Sarah Beth Durst made my top 10 last year and was the opposite of this, it makes me want to read even more from her. All right, 2 books I have never recommended before, and I'm thrilled to recommend them here. So that is The Giver by Lois Lowry. I actually have a very funny story about this book that I need to share with you guys sometime. This is now considered a YA classic, like a true classic. So life in the community where Jonas lives is idyllic. Designated birth mothers produce new children who are assigned to appropriate family units, 1 male and 1 female to each. Citizens are assigned their partners and their job. No one thinks to ask questions, everyone obeys. The community is a precisely choreographed world without conflict, inequality, divorce, unemployment, injustice, or choice. Everyone is the same except Jonas. At the ceremony of the 12, the community's 12-year-olds eagerly accept their predetermined life assignments, but Jonas is chosen for something special. He begins instructions in his life's work with a mysterious old man who is known as the Giver. Gradually, Jonas learns power lies in feelings, but when his own power is put to the test, when he must try to save someone he loves, he may not be ready. Is it too soon or too late? Now, the reason I have this one in here is because basically the Giver is the keeper of stories, and he remembers everything. So not necessarily fiction stories, but just stories they may want the community to forget. He has all of the knowledge. So because it has a lot to do with stories, I feel like you can count it for this one if you want something a little bit different. Definitely like an old school dystopian, but like one of the originals and very, very unique. All right, Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. This is making me want to reread this because I love this middle grade trilogy so freaking much. It is so good. It is not talked about enough. Again, Again, this one should be like on a classics list because it is so freaking charming. I have all 3 books. I've read them all. I love them all. One cruel night, Maggie's father reads aloud from a book called Inkheart, and an evil ruler escapes the boundaries of fiction, landing in their living room. Suddenly, Maggie is stuck smack in the middle of the kinds of adventures she has only read about in books. So basically, her dad has the ability to bring characters out of the story. And so we have a blend of some classic stories that are in here as well, but it's solid own fantasy world. A little bit of a Jumanji kind of vibe, which is really cool. Such a magical, well-beloved trilogy. If you haven't read this one, it would be perfect for the readathon. I think that's everything I want to share for now. Make sure you check out the description where I have links for all the graphics and all the information for the readathon, as well as the book-themed book haul. Stay tuned for my TBR coming out really soon. Make sure you're following on Instagram at The Bright Side Girl if you haven't already, because I host the majority of the readathon on there. Let me know if you plan on adding any of these books to your TBR, and I will see you guys next time on The Bright Side.